Hi Anti-Society, welcome back to the Anti-Social Planet. Today we are checking out You and I by Dreamcatcher. We're continuing with storyline things, which is a bit weird. I feel like it's been a long time because we had comebacks and we also did like the prequel stuff, which I feel like isn't in line with like the Good Night where we left off with that part of the storyline. But of course we're going to have to check out the song first before we get into storyline stuff, so we'll kind of put a pin in it for a little bit, have it in our minds, but we're going to be focusing in on the song and the lyrics and the vocals, and I'm just so excited to get some more Dreamcatcher music in my life because it's always an exciting day when I can add more Dreamcatcher music to my rotation. I don't know if we're going to be sticking with something that is more with the like rock kind of feeling. I don't know, You and I makes me think something more sentimental, but I'm always wrong with my predictions. I feel like it's because there's another song titled You and I that is very like slow and sentimental, so that's where my brain is going automatically. But we're going to check out a lyric video first for this. I've been sent one to make sure that I get something that is like a good translation. So thank you to patrons for helping me kind of guide me through some of this stuff, and then we'll get into the MV. So let's check this out. I'm always excited and nervous because I feel like after the last comeback, I don't know what is emotionally in store for me. Like Bon Voyage made me feel so many things that I'm just a little apprehensive now. Like is this going to completely shake up my world? I don't know anymore. Okay, piano. Doorbell? Ooh, okay, so it is a little slower at the beginning. It's almost like the piano through like an old, I don't know like the proper word, but you know like the turntables that have kind of like the horn thing on them? It's almost like that kind of sounding to it, which also gives me kind of a nostalgic vibe. I know like the synth thing, it almost sounded like a doorbell to me, which I know like probably it isn't, but it could be. That. I'm not crazy for thinking that's a doorbell, right? The strings though with the build-up? Ooh. Ooh, okay. I love the melody that we had with Gahyun's part of the kind of like, I don't, it almost made me think of like something like a violin when someone plays a violin, the way that it kind of sounds, which is kind of cool that they have strings in the back too at that part. We had a few things with like the reflection in the mirrors, which we've had before, and like the imagery in terms of the storyline. And then also, was it the album before prequel that was in the mirror? Okay, it does sound like a doorbell. I'm not crazy. I feel like it does. Which also, when we talk about like leave the door open, it also makes me think of in Fly High, because we had at the end where we had to like closing the like gates. So there was this feeling of like in the prequel of them being kind of locked in to this house, and now we have, I don't know, almost like paranormal hunter person showing up and like shaking things up, right? And like changing kind of their, I don't know what the right word is for it, because I always think of them kind of like spirits, but they're not, they're nightmares. So it's kind of like shifting my terminology to fit that, but like this person kind of coming in, like changing the way that the curse works, right? And kind of challenging what is bonding them to this house and all that kind of thing. So it's interesting to me to have that doorbell at the beginning of almost like someone showing up or like a greeting, right? And then we have these lyrics of like leaving the door open and that kind of a thing. Ooh, yes, that's also true. In Good Night, we have the hunter getting stuck in the mirror too. Thank you for reminding me of that. Yeah, that was like at the end, he gets stuck in the mirror. So it's kind of like a switch between him seeing them in the mirrors and then him getting trapped in the mirrors. I was thinking in Fly High where we had, I think, Yehyun, who had like the like almost like the vanity with the mirror that was like at the edge of the forest she kept like looking into. Lots of like, you know, mirrors and kind of getting trapped in mirrors and coming out of it. And you know, if we think of like nightmares are like a reflection, if I can use that terminology, of like our own like internal fears and insecurities and things like that. They're kind of like manifested in the form of those nightmares. So it is a lot about like self-reflection and what affects them personally, right? Is like how their nightmares are manifesting and how the curse is affecting them and things like that. Yeah, there's going to be a lot more mirrors. I believe that. I believe that mirrors will be like a huge thing, especially since mirrors have a ton of like mysticism around them. Part of the reason that like, you know, vampires can't be seen in mirrors is because they're supposed to be a reflection of the soul, and vampires don't have souls. And there's tons of kind of folklore around like, if you look into a mirror too long, your soul will get trapped in it or like sucked into it or corrupted or whatever, or that there's something dark on the other side. Or you talk about like malicious spiritual beings being stuck in mirrors and things like that. Like there's tons of mysticism around mirrors. So I totally get them using that, especially since there is kind of some internal analysis to the storyline of them kind of working through their own internal struggles and insecurities and things like that. So I loved the melody that we got into with the pre-chorus. Also, Yuhyun's vocals, always lovely. That part. Ooh, the guitars. I'm sorry, Jiu. You can't just throw that beautiful falsetto note at me without warning. Oh, beautiful. Ooh. Ooh. Ooh, okay. I love the way that that like chorus opened up, because we do have kind of this more subdued, darker kind of tone to the rest of the production, but then we had that guitar coming in. I really love that we had that with Sua's voice, which has kind of like a richer tone to it, and then that contrast with Jiu's kind of lighter falsetto note right there. And then we kind of, the whole kind of thing brightens up for the chorus coming in, speeds up. And I kind of like that with the lyrics, where it's, again, kind of this, I don't know, almost like siren call of like, the thing that there was like kind of this repeated motif in their music of like, come away with me, right? They have this feeling of like, come into the nightmare. They're kind of beckoning us to come along with them through this whole thing. And having this kind of like bright, fast-paced feeling to the chorus after all, like this darkness and kind of nostalgia, almost hesitancy in some of it, because we have lots of switch-ups in the vocal melodies, and then having this more forward momentum to the chorus is like, leave that, let's go, right? Like, come with me, come into the nightmare, stay with me, forget about all of that other stuff, just stay here, right? So there's some cool stuff happening with just like the musical choices in this, tonally. Ah, the drums. Love a musical little part. Ooh. Sorry, her Dami panicked. She makes me panic a lot now. My relationship with Dami has always been kind of, you know, rocky, just because like I am very greatly affected by her. Given more recent songs that I have heard, I panic now. I'm not saying I've picked a bias in this group, but I do feel a distinct bias panic whenever Tommy's part comes in. That just like makes me like have to prep myself. It's fine. I'm just gonna take a drink and then we'll let her do her thing. Okay. I like the suspended guitar though. Ooh. I just said the whole like siren call, like voice calling, but also we have the layered vocals too, like multiple vocal tracks for her as well, which is interesting. And didn't that happen in another song where I pointed out where I was like, it's really interesting that Dami's part has multiple vocal layers on it because it's almost like the kind of like bright part that you're hearing on top that sounds lovely and it sounds very like welcoming and stuff, and like you want to hear like Dami's like normal voice that she has, and then there's these layers that are more like distorted in the back and have like a darker feeling to them, which is kind of like that lurking darkness in the back of it, again like fitting into the kind of that siren feeling of, yes, it's beautiful and lovely and it pulls you in, like the main thing that you're hearing, but it's dangerous, right? Like there's this underlying darkness and danger to it. So, you know, them being kind of like these manifestations of nightmares and stuff where like there is something tempting in getting pulled into it, right? Into, you know, it's the reason that people like scary movies and stories and going to haunted houses and things like that. Like there's something tempting about being scared in a way that feels controlled. So I like having those layered vocals to it. I'm pretty sure it's her voice for all of them too. It's just like there's different distortions and different I don't know, octaves. Again, I don't know music theory. Someone will correct me in the comments, and I appreciate you. I appreciate the people who are like, this is how music theory actually works, because I'm willing to learn. It's just not my background. There's like a whisper tone too. Oh, wait, I was just thinking with the endless cold eyes. We've had eyes. Isn't it Handang with all the eyes that were like in the room and they keep popping up? She has like a thing about being looked at. It's like part of her nightmare, right? I know that I'm like pulling from like storyline things, but people have told me that the storyline and the lyricism kind of intertwine a little bit more. So I'm like keeping it in my... I've also like recently I went back and I rewatched a bunch of them because I was like, I want to see things like Chase Me and Good Night in the context of like, I know more about this group. I've spent more time with them, especially Chase Me. Chase Me, rewatching it is crazy because I recognize everyone's face now. Okay, so interesting to have like the eyes being talked about here in the lyricism, especially since Dami seems to be the one who's more trying to like break the curse or investigate. She's the one that had all the books and was like kind of like casting spells and things like that. Like she seems more in direct opposition to what's happening or like more aware of it than some of the other members. So interesting that she's the one with that line as well. This is my favorite part. We talk about Yehyun's vibrato there. Ugh, I had like feel it in my heart that I was just like, okay. Right there. Okay, Xian. I love the way it opens up. Okay, I'm sorry. That note that Yehyun hit too, but I also was thinking of where it says like, we wanted this time as well is interesting because I feel like I'm focusing a lot on storyline stuff for the lyricism of this one, and I'm not sure if I'm on the right track. I think it's because it's like fresh in my head and I'm like ready to get back into storyline things. But the idea of like, we wanted this time almost makes me feel like maybe they're not as shaken by this like hunter showing up, because I feel like in the previous songs it was something that they were kind of shocked by and having to deal with. Chase Me, they seemed like a little bit more in control, but then Good Night, it got a little chaotic of them kind of having to counter what was going on. Whereas like this one feels almost like almost like they're toying with someone, right? Like again, that like siren kind of tempting, calling someone, even though there is like this underlying darkness to it. So it's almost like they wanted this moment to like kind of have someone come into their world, right? Like come into this house, come into this place where they're kind of trapped inside, because it's something new, right? And it's something that is a connection to the outside world that maybe they haven't had for a while. Even though they talk a lot about kind of like beckoning people like into their dream, into their nightmare, into their world, you know, you still want that like new person to kind of come into it, right? You want that new perspective on what's going on. I really want to see the music video to kind of see if any of the things I'm kind of picking out are reflected in the visuals of it. The backing vocals too, like lower register. Oh, that chunky guitar. Unfair. The shivers that went through my whole being. I need them to like, at least I need a few songs where they don't give me like full body shivers. Is it too much to ask? I just need to breathe a little bit. Vocals, like, agreed, all caps. They are singing, okay? Because the production just like pulls back. Oh, that got me shivers again. Yehyun, I'm gonna need you to calm down. I'm already having issues with everyone else, especially with I have the most recent comeback in my head from Us, right? Where everyone was coming for me with the vocals. So I feel like I'm just like hyper aware of all of it now. And I don't need Yehyun, who has been coming for me since day one, to be acting up. It's like she has something to prove. I know this is in the past, but it's like, now that I've noticed everyone's vocals, she's like, hang on, hold my drink. And I just need her to like, give me a minute. You can't put two moments that give me shivers back to back. It's not fair. We're gonna listen to it again though, because apparently I have no sense of self-preservation. Do you wait? Vocals. Xian. Ooh, guitar. Woo! What an end with like, it is unfair for them to put Yehyun, Jiu, Xian. It's unfair for like any lineup of the vocals, honestly. At this point, I'm like, I don't know in what arrangement is the best for me to survive their songs without some kind of like emotional turmoil, but I will still be mad about it because it's their fault and they know that. I feel like for that one, I focused a lot on the storyline stuff and kind of the connections there. Again, it's like fresh in my head because I'm just like excited to get back into it. But I feel like you could take it like a lot of different ways as well. Like you can kind of expand the meaning out of it of, again, I feel like I feel this kind of siren strong imagery to it of like beckoning someone in, tempting them, toying with them a little bit. There's like this playfulness to it, kind of knowing the danger, but having that kind of spark more like adrenaline and giddiness as opposed to like caution and anxiety and things like that. So I really want to see the music video now and see if any of the connections that I'm making with storyline stuff pop up. I want to get some new stuff that maybe I haven't thought of yet. See where we end up with this. So let's get to the MV. Okay, this is interesting because we're in a place already that isn't in like the mansion estate that they were in before. It's a little bit brighter too. I know it's like at night, but it has like the white sand, maybe, I want to say. And then like the blues, which is a little bit different than like kind of like the reds and like deep greens that we've had before. Like a portal of some kind? Which is interesting, like an escape. Ooh, okay, Chiyu, hang on. Ooh. I think it's interesting that in the mirror we had the two Gahyans. Gosh, she looks lovely in this though. Is it held by two Jiyus too? Because I was gonna say we had the two Jiyus before. We had the one that was like at the piano, and then she like the other one like walked into the room. So that like doubling up again that's happening. Okay, so I'm correct. Interesting to have like that doubling up again. The outfits though. Ooh, her hair color. Ooh, the spider webs. Okay, also lovely. Love the hair color. But the spider webs again, so bringing back in like the spider and the curse and that kind of things, especially with having Yuhyun here for that, because she's very closely connected with the spider and the curse and all of that. Okay. The photos. Oh, okay. So much happening. Oh, is it iconic, the silver hair? I can see that. The silver hair is definitely a look. I was gonna say that the way that like Handang is kind of sitting is almost like a marionette, which is interesting with the kind of the strings that are going around too. I find it interesting that we have like strings and the spider webs, and I talked before about how it almost felt like they were trapped. So then you have like the doorbell sound and like the opening up the door, because in Fly High we had them like closing off everything and kind of getting trapped inside. Having kind of the strings and spider webs, like these physical things keeping them trapped, is very interesting. Having the photos again, and we have like them burning, which again we knew that they were kind of trying to get the book back and keep the photos away from the hunter that was here. We haven't seen him yet. I wonder if he's like away for a little while. Is he coming back? You don't have to tell me, but I'm just curious if he'll be back. It's almost like cutting up the film, like editing things out. Ooh, the arm movement. What do we see on the floor? Ooh, is it the top? Like, Inception, right? He has the top that he spins to see if he's dreaming or not. Is that what we're referencing? Because that would be cool. Maybe brief spoilers if you haven't seen Inception. You should watch Inception, it's great. But with Inception, you have like the layers of dreams to it too. So we've talked about like them saying like come into the nightmare, come into like dreamland and stuff like that, and talking about being trapped. We had it kind of as this representation of the mansion, this estate that they were physically kind of trapped in, right? But how many layers does it go, right? Like how far are they trapped into this curse? Have they kind of wandered into over like the years of being trapped in it? Because, you know, time doesn't move the same way in dreams as it does in real life. So you can get stuck in those things because, okay, again, brief spoilers for Inception, really, like do not get mad at me if you haven't seen Inception and you don't want me to spoil it, because I'm telling you right now that I'm going to spoil some stuff for it. But in Inception, there is a part where one of the main characters kind of like lives like a whole lifetime in a dream. And then he doesn't realize that he's in the dream state until he gets like pulled out again. It could be that they've like lived for so long within this kind of dream state that they don't really have a concept of like time and like how it actually passes anymore because they're in that world. Ooh, this is like a new layer that I'm very excited about. If I'm right. The upside down perspective too. Yuhyun, what are we doing? The salt and summoning of something. Okay. Salt is interesting. Salt is very associated with like kind of like getting rid of malicious spirits and curses and stuff like that. Like there's the whole thing of like throwing salt over your shoulder, because the idea is like the devil is behind you or like a demon is behind you and stuff. You throw salt over to get rid of it. Interesting to have that with kind of the almost like carved symbol that we have Yihyun on. I like how we kind of have the parallels of like we have that shot of her like on this kind of like carved symbol, and then we also have her like sat in the mansion. So again, that idea of like layers to it. I was wondering, because we had the first scene with the kind of like I think it's sand, but maybe it's salt associated with that as well. I was thinking sand because you kind of have like the like Sandman, right, in like Dreams. So that's what I was thinking with sand. But I was wondering where that first setting that we had was, because it's very different from the mansion. But if we have like this layering effect of like how far into the curse or into the nightmare are they, then it's a really cool way of like introducing new scenes and new environments to the world, just from like a cinematic side of things. It's like maybe a candle as well. Yeah, what is the like green spirit? I feel like my brain stopped when Dami came. What is this? What is this baton? And why does she have such authority? I'm not okay. It's getting worse. I'm like, there was a point in my life where Dami was just a problem. Now it's becoming something else, and I need her to leave me alone for a little while. She won't, and it's probably not her fault, but like the walk, the way that she has the baton, twirling it around, I want to see a live now. I want to see a dance practice. I want to know more about the baton twirling. This is not good, guys. This is not good. In that outfit too, and that one. It's unfair of her, honestly. Why do we have scarves? Ooh. Oh, I was gonna say like kind of the different scenes. It's interesting. It's almost like mirrored of like photographs and things like that, the different kind of scenes. But then we have someone now who's a bit older, right? And again, it fits into that idea of like living through lifetimes, right? Like, is this woman some kind of, it's like something that they've put together in the dream, like a character that has been made up into the nightmare? Or is it supposed to be a representation of one of the other members who's like lived through a life, like more of their life in this nightmare, and they've aged, but then once they like jump back to like a previous layer of the dream, they go back to what they were when the curse happened, right? Because the time hasn't actually passed. I also need Sua to leave me alone. Ooh. With the like spider shadow, so I'm assuming that this woman has something to do with the spider then. Oh, that's so interesting. I have some thoughts kind of on the edge of forming with that one. I want to see where we kind of take it with Yuhyun. It feels very like Yuhyun's storyline focused, which I find interesting, given that we know in the prequel she's part of like what jump started the curse in general. I don't want to say like it's all on her, because I think there's like a bunch of factors to it, and I also think that they were kind of being manipulated into the curse as well. But she's the one that has the magnifying glass that like burns the spider, right? So I think it's a good thing to kind of focus in on her for this, and kind of express more of what she's going through, and then how the other members are kind of in the peripheral of that, and then kind of I think kind of like trying to like pull her back a little bit, because she's wandered a little too far into the nightmare. Excellent acting. That look that woman has. Also Sua's hair. Sorry, just like... Ooh. Ooh, it's also interesting that we have Yehyun as well in the spider web, right? So we had kind of the strings with Handang, who was also one of the first people that kind of got pulled in to the curse and all of that. But it's Yehyun who's in the spider web, right? So again, that feeling of her being pulled further into this curse, into this nightmare more than the other members. And I like that we have Jiu as like the one who's kind of running around trying to figure out what's going on and is kind of the front of trying to rescue her, right? I was talking before about how it felt kind of like Dami was kind of the most active in a lot of the parts up to this point. But I like seeing Jiu kind of take on that role as well, because she's the leader for one, but also because I feel like in the Fly High music video that she was like the first one to kind of clue in that something was happening when she saw like the two versions of herself. But it just like she couldn't get out in time, right? Like she couldn't escape in time to not be part of it. So I like that she also seems to be one of the ones who's figuring things out and trying to get out of this curse that they're in. The mirror is really cool, the hand. Oh no. She's sitting for the picture, which feels like a bad idea. That part, though. Oh no! Make it to the portal! Ooh. The partner work? Oh, okay, there's so many things. I feel like it's interesting to like close your eyes as well. With this one, like physically closing her eyes. Because we had before where she had her eyes closed when she was on the kind of like carved rune where they were trying, I think, to kind of summon her back, like bring her back. And then when she opened up her eyes is when like the smoke that we've seen associated with kind of this, I don't know, is it a manifestation maybe of the curse, is kind of this ghost smoky figure that has appeared. It was when she opened her eyes that it started to, you know, come towards her, right, and kind of like twirl itself around her. So it's almost like keeping her eyes closed, staying in the dream. I think also as part of it is maybe like, you know, jumping back through kind of the layers again of the dream. Lots of imagery to kind of take. Ugh, this part though. Oh no. Uh-oh. Ooh, that seems a little ominous. The like grabbing for her neck. I'm left with a lot of thoughts. I feel like and the best kind of summary of like my head kind of swirling around with things that might be going on. I have a lot of thoughts. I think the main one that I'm kind of pulling is like the new information that they've shown is that they've kind of shifted from some more of the references to like horror films stuff, kind of like classic imagery of that, into something that's more kind of leaning into the dreams, like I was saying with Inception and stuff like that, which is like there are scary parts of it, but it's not like meant to scare you. It's more of a thriller, and it deals very much with the function of dreams and how we perceive dreams. So I think that it's interesting that they're shifting a little bit from that like horror imagery into something that is a little more thriller based as we get more into like the mystery of what's going on. And you can see that even with like the feeling of the music video, right? Like I was saying, it feels brighter. There's a brighter color palette. Even like their clothing for a lot of it had some different color palettes and things in it. So the whole thing feels a little bit less like it's in that kind of dark nightmare kind of ghoulish place, which I think is just part of the progression of the story, especially since it seems like in this one they're actively trying to deal with the effects of what the curse is having on them, right? Because we've had before, I feel like it was very much focused on like the hunter and like his perception of going into this mansion and dealing with these nightmares and this curse and stuff like that, like what he thought of it with Chase Me, right? And then in Good Night, again, it felt like it was told like kind of from his perspective, but we got like little parts of kind of the peril of what it means to have someone else interact with this curse and stuff like that with the members of Dreamcatcher. And then the prequel was like a huge shift because it was before everything had happened. So I feel like this part is them more actively engaging with what the curse is and how they're kind of struggling and managing it, and without maybe it is kind of a domino effect of having the hunter show up, but I feel like it's also probably just something that they've dealt with in different iterations for a while. If they've been there for a while, kind of the hostility of this place that they're trapped in, but they are trapped, like they're supposed to be trapped there. So lots of interesting thoughts about that, especially with getting to see kind of a personification of the spider with like the woman showing up, and also with kind of this smoky ghost creature like having a more active part as like its own character within the storyline as well. I also just really want to rewatch Inception now just because it's a good film in general. I'm like reminded, I'm like, man, that was a good film. I hope you enjoyed watching that along with me. You can click this playlist to go and see my previous reactions, or you can subscribe so you know next time I post a Dreamcatcher reaction, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.